All right, today we're diving into one of the biggest ideas in the entire crypto space, this vision for a completely connected universe of blockchains. We're going to unpack the ambitious master plan called Cosmos.
But first, let's start with a really simple question. Just imagine for a second a world where your Gmail account couldn't send a message to a Yahoo account. Yeah, sounds totally broken, right? A fragmented, inefficient internet.
So on one side, you've got the internet we all know and love. It's seamless, it's connected. But on the other, a world of digital silos. Well, for a long time, the blockchain world looked a lot more like the one on the right.
And that right there brings us to the core problem Cosmos was built to solve, this whole issue of blockchains acting like isolated digital islands.
I mean, think about it. Bitcoin was an incredible breakthrough for digital money, and Ethereum brought us smart contracts, which was huge. But here's the catch. They couldn't naturally talk to each other. They were fundamentally separate worlds.
And for you as a user, this isolation is just a nightmare. If you ever tried moving an asset from one chain to another, it's painfully slow, it can be super expensive, and worst of all, it often forces you to use these risky third-party bridges, which, by the way, are huge targets for major hacks.
But what if there was a better way? Well, this is exactly where Cosmos steps onto the scene with a really radical new vision, creating an internet of blockchains.
The key concept here is something called interoperability. Now, it sounds like a big fancy word, right? But all it really means is getting all these different blockchains to finally speak the same language so they can work together securely.
And this quote just nails the mission perfectly. See, the goal wasn't about building one mega chain to rule them all. No, it was about creating the underlying fabric, the connective tissue that connects all of the chains.
So, the big question is, how does Cosmos actually pull this off? Let's take a look at the blueprint. It's really built on a few core, pretty ingenious ideas.
Okay, first up is the architecture, and this is where it gets really clever. Think of individual blockchains, they call them zones, as separate cities. Now, instead of building a direct road from every single city to every other city, which would be a total mess, right? You build major airport hubs to route all the traffic. It's just so elegant and it's massively scalable. And here is the absolute crucial point. Even though these chains are all connected, they stay fully independent. They're sovereign. That means each one controls its own destiny, its own rules, its own fees, its own future. That idea of sovereignty, it is a total game changer.
Okay, so how do you actually build one of these sovereign chains? Well, to make it way easier for developers, Cosmos created this powerful toolkit called the Cosmos SDK.
And honestly, the best way to think about it is like Legos for blockchains. The SDK gives you all these pre-built, battle-tested components, modules for things like accounts, staking, and governance. And developers can just snap them together to build a completely custom blockchain in a fraction of the time it would normally take.
And finally, we have the magic that connects all of these Lego creations. It's a protocol called the Inter-Blockchain Communication Protocol, or IBC. This is the universal language for the Internet of Blockchains.
So how does it work? When you send an asset, IBC doesn't just, zap it over. First, the asset gets locked on the starting chain. Let's call it chain A. Then a super secure cryptographic proof is sent over to chain B. Chain B checks that proof, and only when it's verified is a brand new representation of that asset created or minted on chain B. It's a totally trustless and secure system, no risky middlemen.
Okay, so that's all the theory. But is any of this actually working in the real world? You bet it is. Let's take a look at the interchain in action right now.
I mean, just look at this. When you put Cosmos head-to-head with the giants, the advantages are just crystal clear. We're talking transactions finalized in seconds, not minutes, or in Bitcoin's case, an hour. And because it doesn't rely on that heavy proof-of-work mining, its energy use is incredibly low. That's a huge deal.
And this powerful architecture, it's attracted some absolutely massive projects. We're seeing it used for everything from specialized decentralized exchanges like Osmosis to super high-performance trading platforms like DYDX. And hey, even the early architecture of a little project you might have heard of, Binance Chain, was built using the Cosmos SDK.
And this ecosystem isn't just some small niche thing. We are talking about over 150 interconnected, sovereign blockchains, all communicating seamlessly with each other through IBC. The Internet of Blockchains. It's not a future idea. It's already here.
So what does this all mean for the future? Well, the implications of this tech go way, way beyond just crypto.
It really points towards a future of what's called digital sovereignty.
And what that means is that any group, whether it's a company, a community, or heck, even an entire country, can run its own secure, independent digital system without being cut off from the rest of the digital world.
Just think about that for a second. This is basically the digital version of our physical world, right? Where you have independent countries with their own laws and governments, but they can all still participate in global trade and diplomacy. It's like a blueprint for a decentralized digital civilization.
And that really leaves us with one final, powerful question to think about. What becomes possible? What new worlds can we build when we give everyone the tools to create their own sovereign corner of the internet, while also making sure that everyone stays connected? The possibilities? Well, they're really just beginning to unfold.